What up, guys? I'm back with you to give you guys a story on my private multi-check ride. And this was the first check ride I have ever failed. So I failed the check ride. And so we're just going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you guys, how my private multi-check ride went. And then we'll get into the whole failure section of it. So we're going to knock two birds out with one stone. So your private multi-check ride, it's going to be really easy. Just know your systems for the Seminole, know pass and smack foam, know if you have a critical engine, if so, which one. I don't want to start any debates or anything, but your left engine is not always your critical engine. If you have clockwise rotating props, your left engine is always your critical engine. But if both props are counterclockwise rotating, well, then your right engine becomes your critical engine. So just understand that. Just know your systems, and that's really all you're likely going to be tested on. Kind of review everything that's in the private pilot ACS, so that's what they're going to be testing you off of. If you already have your instrument rating when you're taking your private multi-check ride, go over some of your instrument stuff, make sure you're fresh on that, make sure you're fresh on regulations, make sure you know all your charts of symbols. Go over it a little bit and you should be good. Honestly, it's not that hard of a check ride. The oral part is not that hard of a check ride. But let me get into how I failed it. So for me, this was a long check ride. It was only 2 hours long. The flying part was only 2 hours long. My oral took maybe 30-40 minutes. And when you get into a new aircraft, I went from the Cessna to the Seminole. When you get into a new aircraft, you are getting comfortable with it still. And I was not 100% comfortable in the Seminole yet. So I really had to focus to keep it where I wanted it and to keep within ACS. So the whole check ride, I was using a lot of mental power, guys. My brain was just exhausted during the whole thing. But I kept it within ACS. I was doing good. It was all fine and dandy. And so during your check ride, you're going to do VMC demos, you're going to do power on, power off stalls, steep turns, engine failure procedures. You're going to do, I think you do emergency descent. You'll likely shut off the engine, turn it on, and fly it. If you're going for your instrument, if you want instrument privileges for multi-engine, you're going to do a instrument approach with a engine operative. So it's a pretty mentally draining check ride. But we went up and we did all our maneuvers first. And we come back and it's landings. We're just knocking out our landings at this point. And my mind was so done when we came back to do landings. I was like, oh God, like my mind was done. Like I could tell that I was mentally fatigued at that point. And it's important for you guys to understand that when you are fatigued, you might not necessarily feel it physically. It might just be mentally. You might be mentally tired and you're going to be working slow. And you might not realize how mentally tired you actually are until it's too late. And so we knock out a few landings. And finally the last landing comes along. And my examiner tells me, all right, this is going to be our last landing. You can request a full stop. Just give me a short field. And so I'm like, okay, cool, short field. And my mind was so tired at this point that I didn't really brief the landing in my mind. Because whenever I land, I usually go through and I brief it. So I'm like, in my head, of course. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be landing on runway 25 right. I'm going to be doing a short field landing, so I'm going to be landing 1,000 footers. Blah, blah, blah. And the examiner had told me land 1,000 footers. So I'm going through all this good stuff, right? And I'm on my approach and I got a little low. So I add some power and I got back on glide slope. But in me adding power, I added too much, and so I kind of sped up. Note that we have 10,000 foot runways at IWA, so if I'm fast, I'll pull power, and unless I do something stupid, I will be able to land practically no matter what. So I pull the power and we just shoot by the 1,000 footers. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, there goes 1,000 footers. You know, those are 1,000 footers right there, Jay. And I'm thinking, you know, I should probably go around, because I'm not gonna. If I touch down now, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be out of ACS. But I wasn't too sure what the ACS standards were for a short field landing on my private monkey check ride. And I knew that we could land long, so I was like, you know what, you might be within ACS, and you're super tired, so just go ahead and land, and you'll be fine, because this is a pretty perfect check ride. And so I do just that, guys. I land, and it was those words, last landing, just sitting in my head. And I'm hoping, you know, just let this examiner pass me, please, 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 please let this examiner pass me. And so we pull out the runway, and it's just silent, guys. And I was like, yeah, I failed. And before he said anything, I knew I failed. And so I asked Tower to, you know, give us our clearance to taxi back to ATP. And I pull into a parking stall, and I turn off the plane. Take the headsets off, and the examiner looks at me and he says, "The $1,000,000 question, why didn't you go around?" And at that point, guys, it kind of set in with me, because you will hear everybody say that when it comes to you being mentally fatigued, you won't realize how fatigued you really are until the event already took place or afterwards. So I didn't realize that how tired I was until I had landed, and I realized, wow, I really overshot that. Had my mind have been on that, I would have made 1,000 footers. Any other day I can make 1,000 footers, easy. And, you know, any other day I would have thought, hey, you know, let me just go around and make my life easier. Any other day I would have said, you know what, I'm low and I'm tired, let me just discontinue, because I've passed everything else. If I discontinue now, it'll save me a retesting fee, it'll save my record, and I'll just come back and do a 0.1 flight and do a short field. Any other day I would have thought of that. But today, well, not today, that day, I said to myself, because, you know, I was tired, you know, you're tired, Jay, just land. And that's exactly what I did. So he's like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna have to fail you. And it's like, yeah, you know, it's my fault. You know, there's nobody to blame myself. So we get inside, and I guess they thought that I took it hard. And I really didn't. I was like, you know, it was my fault. I messed up. I should have gone around. I wasn't beating myself up over it. But, you know, the examiner was telling me, oh, it was a really, really good check ride. You were showing, you were within commercial ACS standards for most of the flight. You had good control over the aircraft, you know, blah, blah, blah. You seem ready to be a commercial pilot already, you know. It was a really good check ride. You just went too long on that short field. And so that's how I felt it, guys. So I went too long on my short field, and I busted it. So me and my examiner, my instructor, were talking, and he's like, you know what? I think I might be free tomorrow to do to finish up this check ride. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Let's knock it out then. So we literally come back the next day, guys. I kid you not. We get into the plane, and we're sitting on the ground for 0.3, and we're just sitting there. Finally, we take off, guys. We do one lap. We do one lap in the pattern. We do a short field, and then we stop and we taxi back. And I had my license, guys. It was that simple. 0.1 of a flight hour, guys. 0.1. And I have my license. And I'm thinking to myself, I would have just gone around if I would have just discontinued, if I would have done multiple other things, if I would have just stayed focused, I wouldn't have to do this today. I would have had my license, blah, 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 blah. And if you guys are flying and you realize that you are mentally fatigued, the time is not, that's not the time to say, okay, I'm mentally fatigued. That's why I'll use it as an excuse to kind of slacken my flying a little bit. Because that's one of the 5 hats attitude. That's going to put you into resignation. I think I said that right. And I didn't realize it, but I had that hazardous attitude. Because I didn't necessarily, you know, give up. I was still going to land the plane safely, but I no longer really cared about being within that ACS standard. I figured, you know, if I'm off, I'm off. It's whatever. I'm tired at this point. I just want to get on the ground. But if you're mentally fatigued, guys, that's the time you need to focus more. That's when you need to push yourself harder, because when you're mentally fatigued, that's when mistakes are going to happen. That's when small things that you would normally catch become big issues that cause accidents. So just remember that, guys. Remember that a check ride is not over until the examiner shakes your hand and he says you passed. Until then, give it your all, give it your all, give it your all. Do not stop. And if you do fail, guys, please don't beat yourself up over it. You know, it happened to all of us. It happened to me. It might have happened to one of your instructors. It's a pretty common thing. Airlines really don't care if you fail a check ride, as long as it's not a trend. So if you fail your private check ride and you fail your instrument check ride and then you fail your private multi check ride, that's going to be your problem. If you fail your instrument check ride and then you fail, 2 check rides later, you fail your comm multi and then you fail your CFI, they're probably not going to care because there's no trend there. They might see, okay, instrument's difficult check ride, comm multi is a bit of a hard check ride, and CFI is definitely a hard check ride, so they might cut you some slack on that one. If you fail private, they're really not going to care because private's a hard check ride for everybody. But yeah, guys, so that's going to be the end of this video. As always, guys, questions, comments, concerns, say this each and every video, leave them below. If you guys have personal questions that you want to ask me regarding ATP, questions that you don't exactly want to vent in the comment section, just ask for my email below. And I'll send you guys my email address, and you can shoot me all the questions in the world that you have. I will answer each and every one of them. Please don't be afraid to use me as a resource. I'm here for you guys. But yeah, that's gonna end it. If you guys like the video, please subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel a little bit more. I'm not too sure what liking the video does. I don't think it helps me any. So I mean, if you want to like it, you can. Just don't dislike it, please. But yeah, it's gonna be all, guys. So I'll talk to you all later. You guys have a blessed weekend because today's Friday over here, and happy holidays to you all. See you guys.